So how does it happen? How do data breaches happen? The leading cause is going to be social engineering. No matter how good of a hacker I think I am, I can't break through your firewalls. But if I spend a few minutes online, I can garner enough information from a Facebook page, from a LinkedIn page, to trick you into doing something that you probably shouldn't. Social engineering is just that, tricking you into performing an action or divulging information that you shouldn't. And it represents more than 90% of all data breaches out there. The four main types of social engineering are going to be phishing. Hopefully you're aware of social engineering through emails, but there's also vishing, which is social engineering through phone calls. There's smishing, which is short message service, SMS text messaging, phishing through text messaging. And then lastly, but probably most scary, is in-person social engineering. That's where a bad guy actually goes on site and attempts to trick you into giving out information. So as we look at phishing, again, social engineering through electronic communication, generally speaking through email. And that's usually going to play on fear. That's where a bad guy might send an email that says, click on this or else, follow this link or else, perhaps open an attachment or else. And that could also be a pathway for follow-on attacks, such as looking for information. Perhaps they spend some time online digging through your personal information, doing what's called open source intelligence gathering, or OSINT. And that's going to take it from phishing into spear phishing. In this example, the fraudster is attempting to get the victim to open an attachment. So as you can see, thanks for your work with us, your bill is X amount of dollars, follow this link, open this attachment. Again, they're trying to get you to click on something that you probably shouldn't. So you can see that hyperlink in the middle of the page. One thing to be aware of with hyperlinks, they don't have to take you to the website that they say they're going to take you to. I could type out target.com, highlight that, right click on it, and go down to edit hyperlink and have the link take you to walmart.com. So you think you're going to Target's website, but you go to Walmart's website. As we look at this example, this is from Microsoft. This is from Outlook. All Hotmail customers have been upgraded to Outlook.com. Follow this link and log in. Just because it says Outlook doesn't mean it came from Microsoft. A bad guy can create a fake page that looks like the login page. So with this example, it might look just like the Hotmail login page, and when you type in your information, the fraudster is just trying to harvest your credentials. That takes us to vishing, which is social engineering through voice solicitation, generally speaking through phone calls. This is where a malicious actor is going to call and attempt to gather information. Usually this is conducted live, so the fraudster is actually on the other end of the phone. But there certainly are tools out there that can automate the process, so a computer is attempting to call the victim. Now it's important to note that the fraudsters aren't going to call and ask for an account number or a credit card number. They're likely going to ask for follow-on information. Perhaps they ask what type of printer you have or what type of firmware you're running. Maybe they claim to be from your IT department and they're asking what version of Windows you're running. The reason why they're doing this is they're attempting to look for vulnerabilities in your system that they can use for later follow-on attacks. Smishing is the next form of social engineering that we're going to talk about. Again, this plays off the short message service or a general text message. So in this case, we can do high volume, but really low input. So computers can do approximately 4 billion things a second. I can have my computer guess 100,000 phone numbers with your area code, and it can say, hey, this is from a really large bank. We recently had a cyber attack. Text us your account number and we'll tell you whether or not your account was affected. Now, 99% of us are probably going to delete that text message without thinking of it. But unfortunately, 1% might respond with those account numbers. And that's still 1,000 accounts if we sent that to 100,000, right? And then we can balloon that up to 1 million phone numbers, right? We can see how quickly things go from bad to worse. It's important to know that attackers can also send malicious links in those text messages. As you can see from these examples, there are a number of different methods that attackers will use to try to get your information. They can claim to be from a government agency seeking your information, your tax information perhaps, or they can claim to be from a bank and having unusual account activity. And so follow this link and log in and we can tell you if you've had unusual activity in your account. Now let's talk about in-person social engineering. Now, this is a lot more prevalent than we realize. The bad guys are out there actively trying to get into your organization. While this is a little bit easier at large organizations because there can be a lot of people walking around that maybe you don't know, the preferred method for attackers at large organizations is to piggyback or tailgate through a locked door following somebody. Certainly, those bad guys could be looking for server room access, right? Computer room access. They could be looking for information. What do we leave setting out on our desks? Certainly, workplace violence is a scary thing to think about, but we need to think about it, right? These bad guys could be walking around our office. They could be casing it, looking for methods to conduct follow-on attacks. And then theft. They might be trying to steal computers, steal monitors, other types of office equipment. Whatever your business is, they might be looking to steal those things. Now, as we look at some of the tools that these in-person social engineering bad guys are going to use, first let's look at this RFID reader. Right? So a lot of us have an RFID badge that we use to badge into certain doors at the office. In this case, you can see this one has a 6-meter range. Right? This one's purchased off Amazon for $250. Again, 6-meter range allows me to put that white box anywhere within 6 meters of the legit RFID reader. Now you might be able to say, hey Ben, that's a big white box. Our employees are going to recognize that. Well, what if I disguise that box as a fire alarm pull station? It would be a lot harder to recognize that that's out of place. If we look at this tool, this is also a reader or a writer, so we're able to create cards. So using that last tool, we're able to get that information, and then using this tool, we're able to make those fake cards. And if you'll notice, this one is also available on Amazon. And if I don't want to print the card on an RFID looking card for fear that I might, somebody might recognize that, you'll see those keychains. I can put the RFID code onto one of those keychains. This tool is known as a Wi-Fi Pineapple. This is a wireless tool that is used to mimic or mirror a legit wireless signal. So we'll say that at your home or your place of business, your wireless signal is known as legit Wi-Fi. It will find your network and then mirror all of those network settings. So the network name, the IP address, the MAC, which is like the device address. It will mirror all of that and stand up another signal that looks just like your legit Wi-Fi. It will then send a denial of service attack to the legit Wi-Fi router. It'll knock that device out. Then all of our devices that were connected to legit Wi-Fi will then say, hey, where's the legit Wi-Fi that I was connected to? Because my malicious router is mirroring the network settings of the legit router, our devices will attempt to connect back to the malicious router because they're looking for that wireless signal. My malicious router will then stop them and say, hey, you can connect, but I need to know the network key, right? The security key, because my router doesn't know the security key. Our devices, because they're smart devices, will provide that security key without being prompted by the user. So then they authenticate to that malicious Wi-Fi signal. Then, once those connections have all been established, they will stop the denial of service attack against the legit router, against the good router, and then it will then use the network security key that was given to it by our devices to connect to the legit router, so that way it can get out to the main internet. It's called a man-in-the-middle attack, and all traffic then has to pass through our malicious router. These routers are for sale out on the web. Don't go buy them, but they're certainly available out on the internet. They make it in an edition that's a plug-in, so it goes through a normal plug in the wall. They also make a battery-operated edition, and recently they came out with an edition that's small enough to fit inside your pocket. This device is known as a packet squirrel. Now, very similar to the Wi-Fi Pineapple, except this operates through traditional Ethernet methods. So you'll notice the front of that actually has an Ethernet port. We'll plug an Ethernet cable into that. On the back side of that device, it looks just like that with another Ethernet port. We'll then plug that into the wall. So one end's plugged into your computer and the other end's plugged into your wall. This has what's called a remote access Trojan inside of it, which allows me, the bad guy, to remotely access the network that it's plugged into. This is the OMG cable. Now, while this might look like a traditional iPhone or Android charging cable, this one actually has a remote access Trojan inside the USB portion of the cable. So anytime somebody attempts to use this and they plug that USB port into the wall or into a charging box, the other side then gets plugged into a device, they're actually able to remotely access that device. So if you travel a lot, we could take a lot of these cables and throw them down at the airport, right next to the airport charging station perhaps, throw these down, and some unsuspecting people are probably going to take them and plug them in, unfortunately. This device is a plug-in USB keylogger. So if I'm able to get to one of your computers and I'm able to plug this into the USB port, this is going to allow me to record all of the keystrokes. It's going to log all of those keystrokes. And you can see this one has up to 16 gigabytes of memory, so a lot of pages of text can be saved. You don't need to point this in the direction of anything. It knows where all the drivers, all of the keyboards, anything like that, it knows where those are going to be located. I'll also note this works with all editions of Windows, Linux, or Mac operating system. Now you're probably thinking, hey Ben, if my USB ports are shut off, then I'm immune from the keylogger. Unfortunately, no. You'll notice this is a wireless keylogger. So in this case, I'm able to just download it straight from, you guessed it, Amazon for free, and this can sit on your computer and record all of your keystrokes. To deliver any of these in-person social engineering tools, I can claim to be somebody that I'm not. Perhaps I claim to be a drywaller or a plumber. If I can walk around your building and get to your machines, get to your computers, I can plug this stuff in, I can download that information, I can find whatever's on the desk. So we need to make sure that we're locking down our computers, that we're keeping our desks clean. It's important to note that this isn't limited to large Fortune 500 companies. This affects everybody. And whether you're a 5,000 or a 10,000 person company, or you're a small auto body shop, right? This affects you. And when we think about what information they're after, sometimes it's easy to think, hey, we don't have credit card information, we don't have social security numbers, so we're immune from this. They're not going to be after us. But perhaps they're looking for a follow-on attack. Perhaps there's a large Department of Defense employer in your area, and perhaps some of their kids go to the school district. So maybe they want to go after that school district and they want to look at what's on the lunch menu, right? How can I craft an email? How can I do a little bit of research on the front side to craft an email that's going to get somebody to click on something that they shouldn't? To recap social engineering, we discussed phishing, social engineering through electronic communications, namely email, vishing, social engineering through phone calls, smishing, social engineering through text message, and in-person social engineering. All of these together represent 93% of all breaches. You are the first line of defense in protecting your organization.